Everybody should now filter in. Chandy, should we leave it to yourself to introduce?
This webinar, we will just wait for another 2 minutes so that all the remaining applicants waiting in the lobby can join, and then we'll start. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining this webinar on University Accommodation at Canterbury Christ Church University, presented by InUni. With me, I have some of our esteemed colleagues from Canterbury Christ Church University who will be presenting this webinar, Mr. Stephen Landman and Kathy Latchford, who will be the primary speaker for this session. Before passing on this session and before passing on to Kathy, setting some housekeeping rules for the session. Please keep your devices on mute so that there is no background noise, and hence the session can happen without any disturbance. We are going to also record this session, so I will request if anyone has concern, I would request you to keep your camera off. And while we will also be taking questions from you, you can put your questions on the chat box. You can direct the questions to me or Ankita Rao, who has also joined the webinar and who is my colleague. We will take all the questions one by one after the presentations. All right, so over to you, Kathy.
Thank you, Chandri. I'm Katie, I'm Head of Accommodation at Canterbury Christ Church University. I'm going to talk through with you some of the accommodation that we have available, and then look at what you need to do next. So my slides are stuck. No, not, they might whiz fast. So here's hoping they've stopped. Okay, so Canterbury is a city, I have some pictures here. It's an absolutely beautiful city in the southeast of England. Relatively small geographically, with a very vibrant town centre based around Canterbury Cathedral. We have 3 university campuses within the city, so it's quite a vibrant student area. And we have somewhere around about 30,000 university level students in the city. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is great when your parents come to visit. So there's lots and lots of things to see and do, and some very old buildings. So you have Canterbury Cathedral there in the left-hand side, and also in the bottom picture with our campus in the foreground. So in terms of our accommodation we have available in Canterbury, the city centre and cathedral are within the small ring road there, and the red blocks that we have on this map are our teaching spaces, and the green dots are our different accommodation options that are available and open to you. So we're going to have a quick look at some of those. Then I'll show you afterwards as well where you can find out some more information. First question is, why university accommodation? So for those of you who are considering coming to study psychology with us, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the idea is that you have to meet the needs at the bottom of the pyramid and slowly work your way up to the top, to the pinnacle of self-actualization. So universal needs in student accommodation are met. All of your bills are included, free Wi-Fi, the costs are set, you know exactly what you're paying for and when that's due. Next level of Maslow's hierarchy of need is safety and security. So all of our accommodation with the university has 24-hour security presence, either on site or for some of our smaller blocks, a short call away. We also have a number of different projects within the city. So at the beginning of term, we have a small bus that can help you get round the city before you get to know where you're going. We have our street marshals as well, who are there to help navigate through the city for the first few weeks of the term. And then your social needs. So you'll be living with other Canterbury Christ Church University first-year students. So as you transition into university life and living away from home, and for those of you travelling internationally, that's a big transition and a big step to make and to take. But the good thing is that we all go through it. All of you will be going through it together. We also have our student accommodation champions on site. So these are students who've lived in university halls before, in their second or third years. And their role really is just to be someone there who you can have a chat to and help students kind of adjust to living in university halls. They also create and run different events within their residences to try and help people make connections, particularly at the beginning of term. So this is one of the events we had, a skip week off, and at Christmas we have a dressed ball contest between the halls to see who can Christmas their doors the best. And then here we are at the end of your degree, hopefully, achieving the best possible outcome you can during your stay at university with us. Now, the one thing that Maslow missed out, and we've updated, is Wi-Fi. That is the #1 question that we normally get asked. So we have free, fast Wi-Fi in all of our accommodation blocks. It's the same provider that we use across the campus, which is great. So you don't need to log into different systems at home or on campus. So that travels with you. So going to have a quick look at some of the different options that are open to you. We are a city centre campus, so we have blocks across the city centre, but all very, very close to our teaching spaces. So this is Petrus Court. We have 418 ensuite bedrooms here. It's about 30 seconds from our student library, which is also where our student support services are based, and a short walk through the city centre to our teaching campus. Again, St George's is of a similar block with 200 ensuite bedrooms. If you look at the picture in the top right, just in that top corner is Canterbury High Street. So it's nice and central and kind of equidistant between the library and the North Holmes teaching campus. There's some indicative prices on here for you as well. So these are the prices for this year. Now, just behind the Dover Street block, we have some smaller houses, which are Dover Street houses, and they're 10 3-bedroom houses. Some are en suites and some will share facilities, and they're a mixture of small double beds and single beds. And I think the good thing that we have is a real opportunity for you to work out whether you'd like to be in a larger block or in a smaller house. And really the opportunity for you to pick and choose between those to what suits you and the experience you want to have as you come to university. This is Pin Hill again. It's quite popular with our teaching and education and health students. It's very close to the train station, which is helpful for people who are on placements. And here we have 156 bedrooms with 40 of those en suite. And then these are much smaller cluster flats. So Petrus and St George's, which we showed before, are between 5 and 8 within a cluster. Pin Hill is 2 and 3 clusters. So again, it's just those options for you as you're going through trying to pick where you'd like to live. You know, how many people would you like to live with? And the key distinction is, would you be happy sharing facilities, which has a slightly lower cost, or do you want your own bathroom? And those are probably the 2 biggest questions that we get asked. Moving on, we have Lanfranc, which is a beautiful block just behind the cathedral in the centre of the city. It's about a 2-minute walk to our North Holmes teaching campus, but you are really right in the centre there. And behind that beautiful flint facade is a very nice green courtyard. And I'll show you how you can have a kind of walk through and look and feel of these on the website in a minute. This is Burnham Place. This is one of our value blocks. It's a small community-based block of 26 bedrooms, all with shared facilities. Again, it's kind of halfway between our library and the North Holmes teaching campus. We're nearly there. These are our university houses. So we have 64 bedrooms across a number of properties, and these really are like living in a small on-street house. So normally have 3 or 4 bedrooms sharing a bathroom, a kind of more typical house-based experience for you. This is Parham Road. So we have some 200 bedrooms in Parham Student Village. There are a number of different providers down there. I think in total there's somewhere between 600 and 700 now students living in the area. So it's a real vibrant student village feel to Parham Road. And I think most people find it's like trying on a wedding dress. You kind of have a look around and decide where you think you might fit. For anybody who has any specific requirements, we have adapted rooms which we can tailor to your needs in St George's, Petrus, and within our city halls, which is Holmes Court. So we work both with any occupational therapists and our own disability team to provide exactly what you might need within those rooms. And finally, for anybody who is looking to study in Medway, we have our Pier Keys accommodation at the Medway campus, which is shared with the University of Kent and Greenwich students, with 1,000 ensuite bedrooms there and very close to the universities at Medway campus. One of the good things about being in university accommodation is that you also have access to our student support health and wellbeing service, and you will also have access to them if you're not living in accommodation, but they are on site and very close to some of our accommodation sites. So that includes our student support and wellbeing advisors, really, who are there and trained specialist advisors giving advice on all elements of coming to university, be they academic, personal or financial. We also have our disability and mental health teams and our dyslexia team. And we also have a professional counselling team. And we like to talk about these now because people often don't think they're going to need student support, health and wellbeing until they do. So we like to just kind of signpost now so that everyone's aware that they're there if they need them in the future. And this is some of the things that we do with our student support team within accommodation. So we've had pop-up fire pits with marshmallows, some mindfulness sessions, community lunches, kind of indoor exercise sessions. So really just geared up to trying to help people make a really good positive transition into university accommodation. Our campus is a car-free campus, and our accommodation is car-free. So there are lots of ways to get around the city, plenty of bike storage and subsidised travel rates on the buses. And also we now have an electric scooter pilot within the city centre to help you get around. We also have options for alcohol-free flats within the application forms. And also options around whether you're happy to live in a mixed gender flat or whether you would prefer a single sex flat. So that's part of the application process. When you come to university, you'll be given a smart card, and you are able to use that and put money on your smart card to be able to spend in both the bookshop and the catering outlets on campus. So you or your parents or anybody can load credit onto those student smart cards, and you can spend that on food or books, not alcohol. So there's a limit on there. These are our indicative prices. They aren't indicative now. These are our prices for this year, apologies, based on the room type. And we have these room types across multiple locations that we've talked about. Our accommodation guarantee is that we guarantee a place in university accommodation, provided that you are a foundation first year undergraduate, have firmly accepted an offer of a place to study at Canterbury Christ Church University. And for students who aren't travelling internationally, have submitted a completed application by the 31st of July. However, that does not apply here, and we will be guaranteeing accommodation for all students. To make an application, you can make an application as soon as you have a unconditional firm or conditional firm offer to study at Christ Church. You cannot get through the portal, which will show you before you have a firm offer. And to make your offer firm, we have to be the first choice university for you on your UCAS application. You apply online via our accommodation website portal, and you can choose everything through your preferred accommodation. So you need to consider room types and your budget. And we can have a quick look at that if we need to in a minute. We make allocations in date order of application, so to try and keep it as fair as possible. And that is the end. I went through that very fast. Sorry, Chandy. So we have the link there to our web pages, where we have some videos and 360 walkthroughs of the room, so that I know it's difficult at the moment for people to come and have a look round before you travel, but at least you're able to get a feel of what those rooms look like. Obviously, you can also find our Christ Church social media, where there have been a number of things on accommodation. I think there's some Instagram reels on kind of room walkthroughs with our accommodation champions previously. So I'm going to stop sharing there. I don't know if you wanted to do some questions or whether you wanted me to go into looking at the portal.
Kathy, that would be great if we can just go through the portal. I think several questions are also coming regarding that. So maybe we can take question and answers post that.
Okay. Can you see that now?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
We can.
So these are the Canterbury accommodation pages. So I think it's just canterbury.ac.uk/accommodation, and that brings you into the accommodation landing page. So if you want to have a little more of a focused look round the different plots, you can come down here and we have the walkthroughs there. But in terms of actually applying, if we go through to the apply now page here, so apply for accommodation, sorry. I need to hit that. There we go. So that's going to bring you into the accommodation portal. Now, the reason I said about having a firm offer is that you need your student ID or your UCAS ID, and that will then marry up with the application data that we have. So you will need to put in either your student ID or your UCAS ID, your surname and your date of birth. And those are 3 pieces of information that you will need to get in to apply. Stephen's got his hand up. Yeah.
Just before we move on, nobody in this webinar should have a UCAS ID. Just to be clear on that, you should have your Canterbury Christ Church ID, and you should have your unconditional firm offer. There may be a small number of you that have a conditional firm offer from Canterbury Christ Church, but the number you will require will begin 100 rather than CC. If you try to input a CC number, that is specific identifier for InUni, not for Canterbury Christ Church. It's so that we can do matching. So you don't need to worry about that number at your accommodation. It's your student ID number with Canterbury Christ Church, which begins 100, not a UCAS ID and not your CC number.
Thank you. So we've there's information gone through into the portal. So as you go through the application process, you have a dashboard which will tell you what you've done, whether you've completed your application. Once we've done that and processed that through, you can view your room offer in here. You can also then accept any terms and conditions and arrange the payment for that. You have a mandatory induction that you need to complete before you come, and then your arrival check-in. So this dashboard is really helpful just so that you know where you are in the accommodation application process. But for now, if you come into apply now, the application portal is only open now for this coming year. Be careful to know where you're going for your course, so picking Canterbury or Medway. And then the different pathways here relate to the course that you're undertaking. So we have our returning students, anybody on health programs or education programs, because they have slightly different license lengths. For the majority of people, we're looking at standard pathways. And you can then go into searching for your accommodation preferences. And it's quite important at this point to have an idea and have a mind to exactly what your weekly budget is. So down here you can see the different rooms that are available in the different blocks. You're able to pick 3 different options for your accommodation, and you just hit to apply, and then you select whether you were looking at a large ensuite or a standard ensuite. And so then you can see, yeah, so that's probably where I'm going to get stuck, but that's the most important part of this, is for you to pick those 3 different options, and you can then look at that within the application. There's also an opportunity again to have a look through some of the pictures of the different accommodations. This is Lanfranc we've picked here, and also you can have a look on a map, and we can pick up, she says, it should normally zoom in, but I think I'm having some issues. You can then have a look at exactly where that is. So I'm going to stop sharing there. Apologies, it's because it's a test profile. So I think we've made a number of applications on that profile previously, but past those picking of the 3 accommodation application sites, it really then asks you for your kind of personal criteria. You know, there's an options on there as well. Are you somebody who likes to cook? Do you want a flat that's quieter? Do you want a flat that's more buzzy? And we try as hard as we can to match people's preferences on that part of the application form, so that we're placing people in the best possible flat or space for them. So I didn't know if there were any questions that come up.
Thank you, Kathy. And I can see there are many questions which have come up, but I think somewhere, before the presentation started, so I think some of them we have covered. But before going to the first question, may I request to the whole audience here, if you can put down all your questions in the chat. We will be now taking all the questions one by one. So, I'm just starting up with the first question. All right, just. Okay, so let me just. Okay, so so the first question is, if I need a studio apartment for myself, then what do you recommend? If there are any options along with some idea on the price range.
So we have a small number of studio flats in university accommodation that you're able to apply for. Or we have, as I said, kind of sharing with just 2 people. I would get your application in. If you're very clear that it's studio flats you want, we'll pick that up and talk to you. If we're able to offer it, brilliant. If those have already been taken, because we do only have a small number, we can support you and help you, point you in the right direction of other providers in the city who have studio flats available.
All right. We have the second question. Can you please again tell about or give some details about the Vernon Hall, one of the accommodation option?
Vernon Place. Yeah. So Vernon, I'd suggest if you go onto the accommodation sites, you can get some good pictures of all of the different halls. Vernon is a small 26 bedroom halls. It has shared kitchen and bathroom facilities, but you have your own study bedroom within there. It has 2 separate blocks of, I think, 12 and 14 on each side. And it's down a quiet residential street, but right in the middle of the city. So it's a really good option. A lot of our returning students quite like it because it has that community feel. But it is a bit quieter. So yeah, I really would recommend going online and having a look around. Obviously, the team are on accommodation at canterbury.ac.uk and will happily answer any questions that people have on accommodation.
Great. In fact, just adding a point to the answer, you can go to the website and you can actually have a look of 360-degree, the videos which are there, which can actually give you the whole ambience or, the feel of whole the experience there. So you can browse there and you can get there, get the idea over there. And still, if there are some, if something more that you require as information, please write to us. We'll get back to you with the required information. All right, I can see there are some students who are actually, more concerned about the fitness. So one question, whether there is, gym is available or not.
Yeah, so we have a university gym with preferential rates for students. It's near to our teaching campus at North Holmes Road, which is very close to all of our accommodation. It's a great gym. It offers obviously a straight gym, lots of different classes, but also lots of opportunities for team sport, both within the student bucks system, but also, I don't know what they call it, more social sport. So if you're not wanting to play for a team, you can still get involved in different team sports there. And again, I'd point you towards the website to have a little look through the gym facilities that are available.
All right. So the gym facilities are available. The next question is, are there any accommodation for a student who is coming along with family?
We don't currently offer family accommodation within university accommodation. So we only accommodate our students who are studying at university.
Okay, Stephen?
Hi, Shani, thanks. For anybody that is considering travelling with their family on a permanent basis, please ensure you speak to the compliance team with regard to your student route visa, because it is prohibited under your student route. So you need to make sure that you are not in breach of your compliance, UKVI compliance regs there. So if you are looking for accommodation before you've had those conversations and before you've got your student route visa, have them now before you start making deposits and so on and so forth, because you could put yourself at risk of a visa rejection.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Kathy. I'll move to another question. Okay, so the next question is, I think, Kathy, you have already shared, the price range of different accommodation options which are there, but still there's a question. Please tell me about minimum accommodation charges for 1 month in a shared room.
Okay, so our rooms run from 118 pounds per week up to 167, and lots in between. And that's per week. That I've just seen another question come up that I can cover at the same time. So in terms of paying rent, there's different options for how you want to do that. Some people prefer to pay their rent up front at the beginning of the year. And if you do that, you actually get some money back onto your smart card. So you get £250 back onto your smart card, which you can then spend in the bookshop and the catering outlets. For most people, they pay in 3 termly instalments. The first one due in October time, the second one in January, February, and the third one in March, April. So those dates are on the web pages. And that for home-based students is in line with student finance. So those dates marry up there. But yeah, there are other things that you can do with our finance colleagues. So if you are looking to pay on a slightly different schedule, that's not something that is impossible. We just need to take that on a case-by-case basis with our finance colleagues. I think Stephen's got his hand up again.
Sorry, just to jump in, so I want to clarify the shared room element there. Don't think of university accommodation in the UK as you would see in the movies for Americans. We don't have shared rooms in England. You have a private room, you may have shared facilities. So you would have a private bedroom with your own lock, your own key, your own desk space, and etc. The only elements you may share at the lower end of the budgets would be kitchen facilities, which is a majority of our rooms, in fact all of our rooms I think, and bathrooms stroke shower rooms. And where you do share a facility such as a bathroom and a shower, for example, I think the block sizes are much smaller there. Is that right, Katie?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's good. The only other thing we need to talk about is minimum license agreements, because I don't think we've touched on that yet. I don't know if it's still what we used to offer, which is the 40-week license. Katie, could you just touch on that?
Yeah, so we now offer a standard of 39-week license. This year, all of our licenses are beginning on I think it's the 14th, 15th of September, with a large, when the majority of courses arrive. I know we haven't yet touched on quarantine, but if you are coming in prior to that date, to clear quarantine with us before you begin, your quarantine period of 14 days is free of charge if you arrive prior to the start of your license agreement, and that's fine. People can arrive from the beginning of September, so that they can clear quarantine prior to the course start dates.
Just to be clear on the quarantine, that's for students coming from governmental recognised amber and green list countries only. If you're coming from a red list country, I'll touch on it at the end before we finish, but if you're coming from red list, we're not legally allowed to offer you quarantine accommodation. You have to go to a governmental approved managed quarantine facility, which universities are not. So if you are arriving on the 1st of September from an amber list country, you can come and stay with us free of charge, as long as you're going into university accommodation afterwards, which we would recommend because you get a much better, safer experience in your first time in the UK in university accommodation.
Thank you, Stephen. And I think, Stephen, thank you for, in fact, informing that this is something, a last piece that we are going to take it up, because I think this is something very important for the students traveling from different countries, and, you know, to know what is exactly that the next that they have to do, or, you know, what sort of arrangements would be done by university and what sort of rules and regulations that they have to follow. So I think we'll just take that last bit. And okay, I can see a question from Elena. I have applied on 27th of July and application is still being processed. So Elena, I'll request you to be in touch with our advisors, fast track your applications as soon as possible. So soon when you receive an unconditional offer, you know, then of course, you know, you can go ahead and, you know, try and see for the accommodation, but not for now. So I think right now I would suggest you to fast track your application.
If it's an accommodation application that she's made, I don't know if they've already applied to us for accommodation. No, that's to you. We won't send accommodation room offers before the 10th of August. We will start sending them on the 11th, but it may take through to the 13th for them all to go out. So we won't release them until then. Yeah.
Thank you, Katie. But I think Alina is Alina has just filled the application and not yet in the particular step, you know, where she can go for the accommodation. So okay, so we have one more question. Can student book for 1 semester or 1 month, or maybe for 2 months for the initial stage, you know, so that, you know, they could experience it, and of course they could extend it if they like the accommodation, or, you know.
No, we tend to look for students. The minimum, as Stephen said, is for students with us for a full year is 39-week tenancy within the university. I've just, Shanti, looked at in terms of COVID tests. Do we have to do a COVID test every week? We've just had the guidance through for universities, and they're asking that, obviously travelling internationally, there are different testing requirements for you to travel internationally. Once you come to university, there is an expectation that students will use the lateral flow quick 30-minute tests until the end of September is initially what we're being told, is that students and staff at the university will be asked to test free of charge. The university have the tests to provide to you until the end of September, and the government will review it hopefully in mid-September.
All right. Okay, so there's one more question. The deadline is over. Can I still apply for the accommodation?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I should have removed that from the presentation. That's the presentation that we do for our home students as well. So where we have students coming in internationally, we prioritise your applications for accommodation to ensure that you have somewhere to be when you arrive with us. So no, absolutely. We also now move into our clearing guarantee. So to be fair, you're guaranteed accommodation across your application.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. Along with that, I'll just add one more. Last date for applying for the accommodation. We allocate. I'm laughing because we just always find space, but we allocate in date order. So if you're very clear that there's a certain place you'd like to be, the earlier you get your application in, the better. As I said, you know, we're going to ask you for your 3 choices. If you're dead set on your first one, the earlier you apply, the more likely it is we're going to be able to place you there. All right. Anushri, you want to know about the quarantine details? I think that's what we said. We will just, you know, take that in the last bit of the session. Okay, so there is another question. I am planning to travel along with my wife. Which type of accommodation will be reasonable for me? How much approximately the cost will be?
So we don't tend to place couples and families in our accommodation. We can sometimes offer a studio flat for couples. Wouldn't be appropriate for more than two. So I would say that would be the only place we would be able to place a couple traveling with us. But if we're unable to place you because we have small numbers, we can support you to find a good provider in the private sector.
Okay. Another question is by Roshni. Which is the nearest accommodation to Canterbury campus? And if you can just provide details on that.
In terms of walking, the nearest to the North Holmes Road teaching campus is probably Lanfranc, and then St George's are the two. Probably both about, Lanfranc's probably a 2 to 3 minute walk. St George's probably not even 5. So they are all very close. They are further away though from the library and student support services. I think Stephen's got.
Yeah, I think what it's important to remember when you look at distance from university campus and your accommodation is a real understanding of what Canterbury is actually like. Canterbury is not New York or London or Mumbai or Delhi or a large city. We are a city with a population of 100,000 people and 30,000 of those are students. Our city centre is entirely pedestrianised. You can't get run over by a bus in Canterbury city centre because there's none there. We have a ring road that goes around the entire city walls. We are a medieval city. You can walk from one side of Canterbury to the other in 35 minutes, double back, go to the north, then go to the south and see all 150 pubs that we've got and 1,000 shops all in the space of an afternoon. So if your accommodation was the furthest away from the North Holmes campus and it was a Monday morning 9 o'clock lecture, you can fall out of bed at 8:30 and still be there on time. You don't need to worry. Our accommodation, regardless of where you decide to live, is in walkable, commutable distance of your teaching sites. But more importantly, it's where you're going to meet your friends and your colleagues and your lifelong relationships. And where you're also going to live out your dream of being in the UK, studying at university, enjoying the social life and the fun activities. So don't think, oh, that's 5 minutes from my lecture, I've got to live there, because in semester 2, it could be 25 minutes from your lecture and your lecture's an hour earlier. So pick the accommodation that's right for your lifestyle, not right for how quickly you can run into your first lecture.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for giving us the imaginative tour of Canterbury, and I think I have just done that tour quickly. and in fact you have answered many questions after that, because the students have many questions regarding the distance from the main campus, what would be the appropriate option, or how would they choose the university accommodation option. So I think probably this answer give clarification to most of those questions. Okay, so can you, okay, this is a question from Samuel. Can you please explain more on the student's ID?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm typing in some of the answers as I come across the questions so that we've got them there for reference. As a student coming through InUni, you may have a conditional offer letter first, which gives you an ID number CC followed by your digits. That is a application identifier between InUni and Canterbury Christ Church so that we can track where the students are coming from internally. It's not a student ID that will get your accommodation. When you move to conditional firm or unconditional firm acceptance with Canterbury Christ Church University, you will receive your formal student letter, which details your fees, your program, etc., 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 and your student ID that you will have for the entire duration of your studies, including if you come back as an alumni in 20 years to study something else, will start with 100. So I think it's 100194. I think it's a 6, 7 or 8 digit number. It's definitely 7 or 8. and it will always start 100. That is the student ID you need. It is your CC, it's your Canterbury Christ Church University student ID. If you try inputting your CC 123456, it will constantly tell you you've got the wrong number, because that's an early application identifier, not your student ID. Does that answer the question, Chandy?
Yes, definitely, Stephen. I think that clarifies it clearly, the answer. And I can see there are a few questions which are more regarding COVID test, quarantine, red list countries. Like I said, we will be taking this bit of information at the end of the session. So I'm just keeping those questions on hold. You know, after that piece, if also you have any questions, of course, you can get back to us. But I'm just keeping that questions right now on hold. All right, so I'll just move to the another one. Again, the quarantine accommodation, we'll come back to you. Oh, okay, just a second. Okay, so there is a question from Saurabh Rai. Please explain me about adapted rooms.
So these are rooms for people who have specific disabilities and needs. So maybe a room with a wet room if they were in a wheelchair, or might require a hoist, or adjustable tables or beds. So really it's around if you have any specific needs related to a disability, we work with you to make sure that the room is suitable for you.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. So I think there's a question regarding what shall be the deposit amount for the accommodation.
So we don't charge a deposit, but we do ask for £250 when you accept the offer, which is taken off your first rent payment.
All right. Then again, I can see there are questions regarding quarantine. We will take this question at the end of the session. The next question is spouse allowed to stay together along in the accommodation? I think this is something which is answered now twice. All right. Okay. Okay, there's a question from Farhad. I'm a student of MSc in Global Public Health, and my son, who's 12 years old, will be accompanying me. However, I noticed that my child is not allowed to stay with me in the accommodation. I have called several places and they answer me the same. What can I do if I want to bring my child and use or need a place in CCCU accommodation?
We cannot provide accommodation for under 18 family members travelling with you. We're not licensed or able to do that. I would suggest you would probably be best looking at smaller private providers. So any of the large private providers who are providing similar cluster flat blocks as we do also will not be able to accommodate you with a child. So you're looking at the smaller private landlords within the city to see if they have any availability.
Okay, all right. Thank you. The next question is by Sybil. Can I cancel my lease to move into private mid of the contract? And what will be the conditions?
No, so there's a minimum term that you sign up to, which is 39 weeks. And unless you withdraw from university, you're no longer a student, we cannot cancel that contract during that time period.
All right, so I think, Sybil, this answers also your next question. Okay, so and
hang on, Chandy, it doesn't actually answer the next question, just so you know, because the next question is quite an important one, which Katie will know, which is can I change accommodation if I don't like it or don't get along with my flatmates?
Maybe I think my bad, I was just the earlier one only.
So yeah, I mean, we try and place people according to their wants and needs and what comes through the application form. If you don't like your accommodation or there are issues within your flat, we do try to support people to move. We may not be able to move you immediately at the beginning of the year, and we ask people normally to try and give it a go and come back to us if they definitely want to move. But no, we will absolutely support you to move to a different accommodation block if you aren't happy. It's just obviously at the beginning of the year we are quite full, so it's just realizing that may not be immediate.
Thank you, Katie. And I think along with Sybil, there is one more student who has asked the same question. So I think now the question has been answered. All right. So then again, we have one more question. Please share details about international students. Are they have to arrange managed package, or they can stay there in the university accommodation on their arrival to UK?
Yeah, I can pick that up. That's a quarantine question.
Yeah. All right.
Katie, did we have any recommendations on the private providers? So, I mean, the thing that comes to my mind is for those that are looking for family accommodation, perhaps the rental side of Rightmove, for example.
Yes. Yeah. So I think there is some information on the accommodation web pages in terms of reputable landlords in Canterbury. And yeah, as Stephen said, Rightmove and any of the bigger estate agents who are advertising student accommodation. But again, you'd be looking more, I'd say, for a studio flat rather than renting a room in a student house. I think with children, you'd struggle to be able to do that.
Because there are so many students in Canterbury, there is a lot of private accommodation, which is normally taken up by returning students, not new students. And you will often find on the rental sites and the places like Rightmove and websites, etc., you'll find single rooms offered in shared houses where there aren't enough students to fill the occupancy of the agreement. For those students who are looking to travel with family and children, what I would recommend is that they do a bit of research on some private individual accommodation that does accept families. If you need support with guarantors or advice, etc., please contact international@canterbury.ac.uk, and definitely before you sign any contracts with a private landlord, contact international@canterbury.ac.uk, and we'll review what you're looking at and if it's reasonably priced, if it's etc., because not every room in the city goes through our accommodation team. So just to have a local person who lives in the area to give it a once over and say, yes, this is good, no, this is bad, or yes, this is 10 minutes away, no, this is 2 hours away, is a good conversation to have. So we've got staff available to support people in those conversations. So don't feel isolated when you're picking your accommodation. If it's private, come and talk to us, and we're more than happy to have a conversation with you.
Thank you, Stephen, for all the support. We have another question by Sybil. If the red list is lifted by end of September and I have booked my accommodation, will the accommodation still be available at arrival of quarantine, or how long it needs to be notified?
Most of our rooms are available from the 31st of August. So we can work with you within that envelope. If you need to arrive before that, let us know as soon as possible. Yeah, I mean, if your country moves from the red list to the amber list and you're then able to complete your quarantine with us, that's absolutely fine. We just need notification of your arrival. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you had anything to add, Stephen, but
I'm going to touch on all kind of quarantine in a minute. I think there's lots to go through. We've got about 6 minutes, so.
Yes, and I think there are several questions regarding quarantine. I think this is something which was expected. I know that students have various doubts, various questions regarding it. So maybe I think we can we can start up with that.
Okay, everyone. I'm going to pop the latest web link for the UK governmental guidance for red, amber and green list countries for people entering the UK into the chat. Please, if you're in this session, click on that right now, give it the big gold star so it's saved to your favourites, and check it every Friday morning. And the reason I say that is because the university reviews almost weekly its green, amber and red list. A majority of you, unfortunately, are currently going to be sitting in red list countries. We are reviewing as a country weekly, although there's mootings in the UK media this morning that is going to change, and that there will be some daily announcements of removal of red list, but not reintroduction of red list, which is good. So we shouldn't have last minute changes. So those students in Nigeria who are currently amber list, you should have plenty of notice that it's changing, rather than it changes on Thursday type thing. So where we currently stand as a country at the moment, if you are in a green or amber list, if you're in a green list country, and I don't think there should be anybody here that is, but you have no constraints on arrival into the UK. If you are, unless we've got anybody from Barbados joining us, and if we do, welcome. Why would you come to the UK from Barbados? I don't know. If you are in an amber list country, sadly, you do have some constraints. So you must travel to the UK with you must book your tests, and it's all listed on that website. There's a handy what you need to do next, when you need to book your tests, how much they cost, etc. Flowchart on there, so you can make sure that you've done everything in the correct order to prevent yourself from getting rejected when you try and come through customs. But you must isolate when you arrive in the UK, and at the moment, this isn't going to change. You can isolate in what the government called in place. So as long as you have accommodation booked to go to, be that private or more conveniently for students with universities, we will help you arrange transport from the airport to your university accommodation, where you will be given your key, taken to your own private room with your Wi-Fi, and you can get yourself all set up. And there will be a whole sweep of activities going on as well. So we have student ambassadors that will be there to support you. We will be doing activities through Facebook, through Netflix. We were doing online competitions. We have 24-hour security that can check in if there are problems. You are close to your lateral flow test centres. It is the safest, most convenient environment for you to be in. As long as you arrive before the start of term, so any point after the end of August, but before the 20th of September, Katie has very kindly, at great pains to herself and the management of the university, managed to arrange that we will not charge you for your university accommodation. You will be able to quarantine at Canterbury Christ Church University free of charge. That includes your Wi-Fi, it includes hooking up to all of the university activities and making friends whilst stuck in four walls, unfortunately. But that's the COVID world we live in. You will be entirely supported. You will have access to all of the counselling, the student pastoral care, the activities, the competitions. Last year in January, we had a Decorate Your Room competition. We had a Tell Us You're in Canterbury Without Showing Us You're in Canterbury competition. We had FIFA 2020 competitions. We had Netflix nights where everybody would zoom in and we'd all watch a movie together. We had loads of stuff. And luckily the time passed, 10 days passed in exactly 10 days time. So we are there to look after you. You're not just going to be left in a room and we turn the lights off. Katie and her team have also in the process of arranging catering arrangements. So we'll be able to order some catering bundles. We will support you if you want to get your own food in. So we do those words that a lot of you won't know that were on the presentation, such as Aldi, Tesco's, Waitrose, etc. They're massive supermarkets in the UK and they're within close proximity of the university, and they do deliveries. So a man will turn up in a van and throw all your groceries at you, tomatoes and chickens and things like that. For those entering from red list countries, we are a bit limited on what we can do, and I'm sorry about this. So you will be expected to enter what's called a managed quarantine facility, or an MQF. You do need to book that in advance of coming, and you are responsible for the fees for that yourself. However, Canterbury Christ Church is in the process of looking at remuneration for how we can financially support you with it. So if you are in a hardship, contact international@canterbury.ac.uk and we can advise you. There will also be a discount from semester 2 fees as long as you're paid up if you have faced MQF. We will support you with a contribution, although that's not been made public yet, and we will be communicating out to all students in red list countries prior to that with details of what they will be. After you've done your MQF, you would then come to Canterbury Christ Church straight into your accommodation, And if you do that before the start of term, I'm sure Katie will happily let you into your room free of charge for a couple of days as well. So if you want to if you're ready to come to the UK, you've got your visa and your CAS all sorted and you've got your flights, but you need to MQF, get in your facility, do your quarantine and give us advance notice and we'll get your room ready, basically. The details are updated on the government.co.uk or the gov.uk guidance pages daily. You do need to be responsible for checking your own country and your own requirements, because obviously we can't check everybody's for them. I can't provide you with a link for quarantine accommodation. That's all done through the Gov website. So if you go to the link I've posted, Shivanji, above, you will see on the gov.uk website the links to the managed quarantine facilities. But this isn't a Christchurch thing, I'm afraid. This is a British thing. All students at all universities face the same restrictions, and that's the best we can offer at the moment. You might find some universities are offering to pay for your managed quarantine facilities, which looks like a fantastic deal. But before you consider that as an option, look at the fees that you're paying that university. So some of the universities, or a majority of the universities that are paying for managed quarantine facilities, are charging you annual student fees of £20,000 to £25,000, whereas your fees at Canterbury Christ Church are £13,000. So as a percentage of fee, it's costing a lot more. Sadly, that's not being reported. It's just being reported that some universities are paying for MQF. Yes, they are. They're the universities that are already charging you a hell of a lot of money to come and study, a lot more than UK students. I'm happy to take any questions I can about quarantine. I'm just scrolling through now. So we've had one, as in Bangladesh, that's going lockdown and it's hard to apply for visa. Okay, so late arrivals. Currently, we expect all students, be they green, amber or red list countries, to be with us by the 1st of November. You will be sent details, as long as you're unconditional firm, about how to register virtually online and start your programs from home. And then we will work directly with each of you individually about your travel arrangements. But unless you have special dispensation from the university, which you need to apply for, students are expected to start face-to-face teaching no later than the 15th of November. So if you need to quarantine for 2 weeks, you must be in the UK by the 1st of November at the latest. Yes, there are sports facilities near the accommodation. If you scroll up in the chat, I've posted the link to the sports facilities and the accommodation website. I'm just going back to the questions. Yes, Farhan, if somebody is vaccinated, they do still have to quarantine, I'm afraid, because the quarantine passports don't exist in the UK. Just as if I was to travel out to India, my NHS COVID passport isn't valid overseas. That may change. We don't know at the moment. It hasn't been discussed wider at the moment, but yeah, you will still be required to quarantine because vaccination doesn't prevent transmission. And we are in a position where we are managing our third wave at the moment and doing quite successful on that. So the government aren't accepting vaccinated passports at the moment. And I think that's everything, Chandy. You're on mute.
Yeah. So no, I was just checking all the questions, if all the questions are being answered. But yes, I think all the questions have been answered because I was checking in both. So yeah. So I think there is a question or maybe some inquiry from Saurav Rai. Traveling charge near campus.
I don't quite understand the question, but there is a daily bus that goes around the university sites for students that can't walk. We have a minibus that picks up at all the sites and goes around in a circle every 25 minutes. The trains from Canterbury to London run every 35 minutes. We've got 2 stations. There's a cheap one that costs 15 quid and I'll take an hour and a half, and there's an expensive one that costs 35 quid and I'll be there in 56 minutes straight to King's Cross. There is a local bus service where you can buy a weekly uni rider, which I think is £5.70, but don't quote me on it, with your student card. With your student card as well, you can get what's called National Express, which means you can go from Canterbury bus station to pretty much anywhere in the country for £1. But if you're going 19 hours away on a bus, it will take you 19 hours to get there. So there are lots of discounts available for students in the UK. You'll be given what's called is it still called Totem, Katie, is that right? You can get a Totem card, which gets you discounts in shops. It might not be called Totem anymore. It used to be called NUS, then it was NUS Extra, then it was Totem, and I'm not sure what it's called now. But you get lots of discounts in shops and restaurants, etc., etc., etc. And those travelling around Canterbury itself, you'll be glad to hear we don't have Uber. We're not big enough for Uber, but there are lots of taxis if required, and there's bus services all over, so you can. The bus station is right opposite the student library. It's a 30-second walk, and you can be on the coast in about 11 minutes and go for an ice cream and some oysters by the sea.
Saurav, I think your question is being answered, and I think we have covered almost the complete information on accommodation option and the the complete way through for the platform. And of course the important bit regarding the quarantine arrangements, regarding the new government rules and regulations. So I would like to thank you, Stephen, thank you, Kathy, for providing the detailed information, and I think all the information that students were looking for. Thank you so much for attending this session, to all the students, and we are soon looking to you all to join us for September 2021 intake. Thank you everyone for joining the session.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I've just dropped the last two answers in. So yeah, the last date of arrival in the UK is the 1st of November. And as part of your testing, we do lateral flow tests on site. Actually, Katie, aren't you responsible for managing that?
Yeah, I'm hoping that actually what we'll do is deliver tests to everyone's rooms on arrival, and we'll do it that way. So they should be there waiting for you.
You will be fully supported in your on-campus testing, don't worry.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day, evening, afternoon, good morning.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.